podcast.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. I feel like I've said this every New Year so far on the show. All one, two, three, the previous 4 New Years on the show. It's like, man, maybe this year will be better than last year. And here's the thing. Like, truth be told, all right, 2024... marginally better than 2023 for me in a lot of ways. John, your son was born in 2023. How is that a bad year? I didn't say 2023 was a bad year. Voice in my head, that's very argumentative. But like, I will say, like, and I think across the board, 2024 was better than 2023 for a lot of people, unless you live in like Florida or the Southern Appalachians, where you just got massacred by hurricanes. You probably would say 2024 worse than 2020 or 21. And that's totally understandable. Totally get that. But that's fine. That's okay. We got a lot to shoot for. There's a lot of potential still for 2025 to be the best year ever. And this is the most amount of hope that any of us will have. I mean, look, and here's the thing, man. We're already 6 days into the new year. The hope could already be gone for all we know for some of you. I get it. Like, it is what it is. But we're going to keep going. And it's a new year. And it's a new month. Which means it is another weird fun bag. This is the 14th weird fun bag that we have done. If you're new to the program, the Weird Fun Bag is just 3 assorted stories from my collection, from the books that I have written, the 100 stories, history of lesser known history of, whatever. You don't know what it is. No one knows what it is because I don't promote them. But I do have a series of books, 100 stories, the lesser known series, lesser known history of humanity. God, I can't even get them right. No wonder I don't sell any. But each book has 100 stories, just all random sorts of like true crime or paranormal or just interesting characters or, moments from history that have kind of disappeared or gotten lost in the kerfuffle of all of the political nonsense, Middle Eastern war nonsense, whatever the Russians are up to, all that kind of stuff, right? So the Weird Fun Bag is just me kind of lumping some stuff together that I couldn't really fit into any other kind of themed episode. And so it's 3 stories today. We're going to be talking about the stories of Bridget Cleary, Đorđe Martinović, and Amina Abdullah.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
We start with Bridget Cleary, who was a hardworking, just all-around professional handy lady in Ireland. After marrying her husband Michael in 1887, she moved back home while Michael stayed in his own city to work as a cooper, which I think is a guy that makes barrels. Pretty sure that's what that means. I don't know why they don't call them barrelers. I don't know how cooper, what is the process of making wood into a barrel called cooping? I don't know. I've never understood that. That's why I don't easily associate that term. Anyway, her husband was a barrel maker. Bridget, on the other hand, raised chickens, sold eggs, sewed dresses for women, did all kinds of stuff in her village. Well, in 1895, Bridget fell ill, as women did. Doctors initially diagnosed her with bronchitis, but after a week, none of the treatments were working. whatever kind of primitive medicines they had in Ireland in the late 1800s. And so a priest was called in to administer last rites. Like, she's not doing well. Friends and family then spent the next 2 days trying every home remedy they could think of, but nothing worked. However, Michael and Bridget's father, which that doesn't make sense. Hang on. What? Oh, I am so, wow. Okay. I misinterpreted my notes. Because the way it's written, it says Michael and Bridget's father, Patrick, which I took initially to mean that Michael and Bridget had the same father. And I'm like, that ain't right. They weren't brother and sister when they got married. But no, it was two different people. Michael Cleary, Bridget's husband, and then Patrick, who was Bridget's father. God, no wonder I haven't sold any of these books. If that's how I write, that's the God. This all makes sense now. 260 some odd episodes in, I finally figured out why no one likes my books. Because I can't write. I clearly can't write. This is terrible. Anyway, Michael Cleary and Bridget's father, Patrick, they figured it out. The dying woman in their home wasn't actually Bridget at all. Instead, it was a changeling that had been put there by fairies. The two men then, who fully believed that Bridget was not Bridget anymore, she's gone, and was now some weird fairy changeling person, they filled up like bowls and jugs of their own urine and doused her with it, and then placed her in front of a fireplace that was roaring, just a full roaring fireplace. Because apparently that's how you get rid of fairies. You soak them in pee and then put them in front of an open flame. Okay. The next day, rumors then began circulating through the village that Bridget was actually missing. Michael, Bridget's husband, told police that the fairies had kidnapped her, and instead, her burned corpse was found on March 22nd, with 9 different people charged in her disappearance. This is so stupid. Like, this is the worst murder ever. You're going to tell me that they murder Bridget, right? And then now Michael and Patrick, they're kind of sitting around and like, all right, well, we killed her. We're going to be in a lot of trouble for this. How do we explain it? All right. And then after probably way too much Guinness, somebody spoke up, was like, I've got it. We'll tell them the fairies got her. And everybody was like, yeah, I'm on board with that. That's a good idea. So the trial began on July 3rd with the jury indicting 5 of the 9 people, including Michael, for Bridget's murder. Ultimately, it was basically discovered that Bridget had gotten really tired of being accused of being a changeling. So, like, poor Bridget, she's on her deathbed, basically, and Michael's like, you're not my wife. You're a changeling from the fairies. And Bridget's like, no, I'm not. I'm not a changeling. I'm just your wife, Bridget. And Michael's like, no, you're not. And then Bridget's just getting tired of this. And eventually, she just told Michael that the only person who had been abducted by fairies was his mother. And, ooh, you don't talk about a man's mama like that. Because that sent Michael over the top. And in a fit of rage, he just rips Bridget out of the bed, throws her to the ground, grabs a piece of burning wood from the fireplace and starts waving it at her. And in that process, catches Bridget's clothes on fire. And at that point, Michael had a decision to make. And he made the wrong one. Rather than putting the fire out, maybe he could have peed on her some more. Rather than put it out, Michael then grabbed the nearby oil lamp and threw it at her, which just sent her all up into flames. And as Bridget burned to death, Michael allegedly insisted that it was just the changeling burning and that his real wife would return once the changeling was dead. She didn't. No, there was no changeling. There was no fairies, because fairies aren't real. And Michael was convicted of manslaughter and sent to prison for only 15 years, which seems light for violently murdering your wife because you think a fairy had kidnapped her and replaced her with a changeling. Like, to only get 15 years in prison for that seems very light for someone who is clearly mentally unstable and needs to be locked away forever. But whatever. Ireland. Our next story here, moving almost 100 years later, on May 1st, 1985, 56-year-old Đorđe Martinović arrived at the hospital in the town of Gjilan in the Yugoslavian state of Kosovo with a very unique injury. All right. Look, Kosovo, they got a lot going on over there, or at least they did, like in this time period. One of the minor conflicts that Bill Clinton kind of got involved with, with all the Bosnians and Serbs fighting each other over there in Eastern Europe. But Martinović, he had a broken glass bottle stuck inside of his rectum. And, obviously that raises a lot of questions. And Martinović claimed that two Albanians, they had attacked him while he was just working in his field. But the doctors were like, come on, really? Like, of all things, just two nondescript Albanians just walked up to you out in the field and shoved a bottle up your butt? No. Come on, what really happened? So, obviously, he quickly confessed that his injuries were self-inflicted. In reality, Martinović, he had been in his field for some reason where he got super horny. And apparently the only thing he had on him, on his little rickshaw, wagon, whatever, was an empty beer bottle. And so he attached this empty beer bottle to a wooden stick, planted the stick in the ground, and then just plopped down on it. Which, look, I'm trying to visualize this. Why? I don't know. But I'm thinking if you've got a beer bottle and you're taking a stick, you're then putting the stick into the open area of the bottle. And as bottles are designed, that's the narrowest part of the bottle. If you're going to stick a bottle up your butt, that's the part of the bottle to do it. But it seems like, from the description of things, Martinović actually, puts the open part of the bottle on the stick, sticks the stick in the ground, and then he's just trying to full on take the widest end of the bottle at the start. And no wonder it broke off inside of it. The fact that he got it in there at all, pretty impressive, right? But it doesn't make sense. And also, the problem with this was that no one in the hospital could also believe that someone could be so depraved and horny to do such a thing to themselves. So the hospital, they went to authorities. Authorities were like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. And so they transferred him to the Military Medical Academy in Belgrade for some additional investigation. The 6-person medical team at this prestigious academy, representing 4 of Yugoslavia's 6 republics, was adamant that Martinović's injuries were actually not consistent with a self-inflicted wound, and kind of sided with his original story and believed that at least 2 people would have had to have forcibly shoved this bottle inside of him. And this is going back and forth. All right. A month later, Martinović received a second opinion from Dr. Janez Milchinski, who reasoned that Martinović could have done it himself and just kind of lost his balance and slipped during his little session out in the field, which resulted in the bottle breaking. The amount of hours that medical professionals have spent on trying to figure out how this could have happened feels like it's a bit much. Whatever his excuse was, treat him, charge him for it, and let him go. We don't need to go into all this detail. There's a lot going on in Yugoslavia at this time. We don't need to be spending time on this, but they did. And so, Dr. Milchinski, he's basically he could have done it himself. As he's trying to squat down, he could have just lost his balance and fallen on the bottle. We've all fallen on bottles and other things, and they've ended up in our buttholes in our lives. Am I right? So obviously this is what happened to him. So after Milchinski's report was published, the Yugoslav secret police and military intelligence took a ton of interest in this case thanks to the increased tensions in the area between the Serbs and everyone else. At that point, Martinović recanted his confession and was like, well, yeah, of course, that was the Albanians. The police forced me to just say I did it to myself because they were going to give my kids a job if I just said that I did it to myself. And that's what he said. However, at this point, Yugoslav and Serbian authorities finally were done with this case and refused to look into it further. Even more, Martinovic's case had already sent the media into a frenzy, generating a flood of anti-Albanian sentiment as well as national pride for Kosovo. Here's the thing, and this is not hyperbole. This is not me making a dumb joke. Many historians credit Martinovic's butt bottle as being a significant contributor to Yugoslavia's collapse in 1991. This random dude who got a little horny and shoved a beer bottle up his butt that broke, and then he blames it on some Albanians, was a huge catalyst for Kosovo obtaining their independence in the 90s. Like, I think that's why no one really takes that place seriously, because that's how it happened. It wasn't like some rebel, some like charismatic leader who's rallying no, it was a guy who got horny and shoved a bottle up his butt. And that's how Kosovo gained its independence. Bastardizing that a lot, but like that's kind of one of the major catalysts for it. It's crazy. Our final story here, this one might be even crazier. Amina Abdullah Araf Al-Omari was born in Stanton, Virginia in October 1975. They were immigrants, obviously. Her family then moved to Syria when she was 6 months old, and Amina then grew up traveling back and forth between Syria and the States. At age 15, Amina realized that she was gay. And then 11 years later, she came out to everyone at age 26 and then decided to make Syria her permanent home, which, questionable decision, but okay. She then decided to start a blog about what it was like to be a lesbian in Syria, which, if you didn't already know, is super illegal. The part about being a lesbian, not the part about running a blog, which, I mean, maybe running a blog in Syria is also illegal. I don't know. I think I seem to have some weird stuff going on over there. Anyway, when Syria then broke out in a civil war, Amina's blogs started to go viral. She then gave interviews with the Associated Press and The Guardian. The Guardian actually hailed her as, quote, a heroine of the Syrian revolt. Amina's story exploded even further when reporters later learned that she had been abducted by the Syrian government on June 6, 2011. The New York Times, The Atlantic, Al Jazeera, and several other giant, very respectable news outlets reported on this abduction. The entire thing was made even more shocking when it was finally revealed that Amina wasn't a Syrian lesbian at all, but a 40-year-old white man named Tom McMaster. Tom, who is Tom? Tom was basically a struggling author, like this guy, who came up with the Amina character sometime in 2006 as a way to participate in discussions about the Middle East, because we all know white people aren't allowed to talk about anything dealing with minority groups. We don't know. We don't know the plight of the black people or the Hispanic people, and certainly not the Middle Eastern people. We don't know, but we like to have opinions on it. Woo, boy. Woo, you show me a white person, I'll show you someone with a hard opinion on Israel. Good God. Like, we don't know anything about it. So maybe let's just stay out of it. I don't know. Seems like a better alternative than tweeting about it, for sure. Anyway, that's my high horse for the day. But Tom, he started posting short articles to various websites and started working on a novel based on this Amina character. And then in 2011, Tom posted on the website Les Get Real, L-E-Z, Les Get Real, which was operated by a lesbian named Paula Brooks, except not really, because Paula was also a straight white man named Bill Graber. However, that didn't stop these two white straight dudes from using their two lesbian characters to then openly flirt with each other on the website. Oh, God. On behalf of straight white men everywhere, I am sorry. I don't like that these two men are kind of the same person as me. Like, listen, I don't have like a avatar of a lesbian girl out on the internet, but like, other than that, like, I have a lot of things in common with these two guys. Like, I am a dude, I am white, I am approaching middle age. All right. Like, look, I'm 35 now. These dudes are 40. They're not that much older than me at this moment. Right. And I feel like I'm not going to be that much different than who I am right now in 5 years. And so it's just a bummer that white dudes suck. Like, I'm sorry. For all of you out there who is not a white dude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for us. Like, anyway. While all of this was going on, Tom attempted to sell the rights to Amina's quote-unquote autobiography to various publishers. But once he did this was kind of his mistake. He got a little cocky. Several lesbians, Syrians, and other people with way too much time on their hands, if we're being honest, started looking into this content and started looking into the blogs. Tom has actually started posting excerpts from the autobiography, and they started to realize that there was no way that something like this was written by a lesbian, let alone a Syrian lesbian. For starters, the story was full of very blatant racist Middle Eastern stereotypes that those people assumed that no Syrian could have actually written. Because, guys, you can't be a lesbian and also racist. That's like two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like, we all know that the only people who are racist are like super hetero dudes and maybe chicks, right? But like, you can't be gay and racist. Like, that, because gay people are angels. If we're being like, they can't hold prejudices because they are prejudiced against. That's how that works. I don't make up the rules, guys. That's the rules that they probably made up, if I'm being honest. Like, but like, you just can't be gay and racist at the same. So like, that was that logic. I don't agree with it, but maybe, I don't know. Especially Middle Eastern. You're going to tell me Middle Eastern, a Syrian can't be racist against other Middle Eastern ethnicities? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you know what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now? Like, that's all about race and ethnicity. It's not about race. It's about ethnicity. I'm being a white guy right now, having a hard opinion on Israel when I don't fully know everything that's going on. So I'm going to shut up about it. But I'm just saying, like, the Saudis, the Yemenis, the Iranians, the Iraqis, the Jordanians, the Syrians, the Israelis, like, a lot of them, they don't get along with each other. And so, you're going to stereotype, like, racism. It's not really about race. It's more about the ethnicity and whatever you get. Anyway, I'm going to move on. There was also, aside from that flawed logic, there were also several unnecessarily graphic lesbian sex scenes sprinkled throughout the book, which, again, lesbians can't be horny. Gay people are like the horniest people in the world. All right. Like, I've never experienced this personally, but like, so like, I don't know what I'm talking out of my butt right now, but like, the general consensus is like, you go to a gay bar and you're going to get aggressively hit on by every dude there, assuming you're somewhat attractive. Maybe you don't even have to be attractive. This is what I've seen on TV and movies, so that's the idea that I've had, and maybe that's not accurate. But I've always gotten the sense that gay people are like way more forthcoming once they're out. Obviously, like, if they're in the closet, they're not telling anybody anything. But once they're out, they are going to be more than happy to get real graphic with whatever they're. And so, again, the other lesbians and some Syrians and other white people, if we're being honest, like they're looking into this book and they're like, man, there's a lot of scissoring going on in here. I don't think a lesbian would write about this much scissoring. All right. Maybe like a little bit of scissoring, but not this much. It's like every other page. Amina is just scissoring somebody else. And that can't be accurate. Well, I mean, apparently they were right. Like, I don't totally agree with the logic, but they were right. On June 12th, the online publication, the Electronic Intifada, I don't know what that is, published evidence actually linking Tom McMaster with the Amina character. Tom initially denied it at first, but then he ultimately confessed. Of course, being a straight white male impersonating not just a Middle Eastern, a minority person, but then also a lesbian. So you're like double whammy there, and honestly triple whammy if you're going to go Middle Eastern, homosexual, and woman. Oh, God, strike three, buddy. That enraged basically all of the minority groups, and he was not prepared to answer to all of that. Eventually, though, after several handwritten letters to everyone who was offended by this, people just kind of forgot about it, as they tend to do on the internet, and moved on. There we go. The weird fun bag number 14 in the books. Good start to the year, right? We're building positive momentum. We are manifesting good things because that's how that works. If I just think positive, then it'll happen. Oh God. Anyway, let's see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
2025, the year that I don't put up with anybody's dumb bullshit. Anyway, number 1, Bridget Cleary, really more so Michael Cleary, thought that his wife had been abducted by fairies, and then he just poured a bunch of pee and burned her to death. And no one believed that. He murdered her. Number 2, Đorđe Martinović shoved a beer bottle up his butthole, which led to Kosovo gaining independence. Basically is kind of the real Cliff Notes version of that. And then number 3, what's his name? Tom McMaster pretended to be a 26-year-old Syrian lesbian on the internet and wrote a whole autobiography for her, got cocky, and then got caught, and then everyone just kind of forgot about it.
What did we learn?
Next week on Our Weird World, we are going back to the Civil War. We've had a couple stories sprinkled in during some other episodes dedicated to war stories from the Civil War, but we have not had an episode yet dedicated to the Civil War. So we have 4 stories next week of some lesser known tales from the Civil War. We are looking at the Shelton Laurel Massacre, the Sand Creek Massacre, and then the stories of John Sedgwick and Wilmer McLean. Fun times for everyone in the South who, for some reason, is super prideful about all of it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. That's it. Thanks for continuing to listen. I don't know. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.
This is a podcast